In Update 086, you can get access to 5 of the 9 French destroyers, which are being released from Update 086 to 088. This here is the Tier 9, the Mogador, which is the highest one that you can get in 086, and it's available through the Armory eventually for doubloons. To coincide with the release of the French destroyers, I wanted to upload a replay and talk a little bit about the playstyle of these destroyers. They're all pretty similar going up through the tiers. So they have no smoke, they're very fast base speed, they have speed boost on top of that, they have no AA to speak of, and yet they are pretty good support destroyers. They've got very good guns. The higher tier ones have a main battery reload booster, and the high tier ones also have excellent torpedoes, and the low tier ones, the torps aren't that bad either. So you can zip around the map and you can shoot things and torp things. They're not the stealthiest, but you can definitely sneak up on things with your speed. The port details and the replay I'm about to show you are from an early test version. I think it was from early 084, so this is quite a while ago. And there have been a few changes to these ships, particularly the Mogador. However, they don't fundamentally change the style. This was actually just after they nerfed the concealment. And so I was experimenting with a gunboat build instead of the concealment build, which you can use. And now actually I would use the full concealment build, but this is what I would consider to be one of the alternative builds, which still works perfectly fine in the released version. So you can see those are the upgrades that I have there. You can see I have the range mod in the last slot, and I have the rudder shift instead of concealment in slot 5, and that's just to make it as agile as possible, because I intend to be shooting most of the time, and I want to be able to change direction and juke shots as much as I possibly can. I'm not using it here, but you can of course take the speed boost upgrade module to get a longer speed boost, which is a very good idea, because this is your main weapon. Your speed is your main weapon in these ships, so I definitely recommend that upgrade. And don't forget, if you don't have one, you can purchase it now in the Armory for coal. So this is quite an extreme build. I'll show you the captain in a second, but you can see there on the right hand side that my main battery firing range is 17.8 kilometers, which means if I have to, for example, if there's a carrier in the match, I can just stay back with the AA support of the cruisers, and I can just help them to set fires and just generally harass people, whilst maybe providing a bit of a torpedo screen. As I said, this is an alternative build. It's not the one that I would prefer these days after a lot of testing, but it is definitely a viable build if you prefer that kind of Cabba, Tashkent kind of playstyle. Okay, so let's move over to the captain build that I was using at the time. This is obviously a test captain, so it's got 19 points. So there you can see the skills that I've chosen. You definitely want to have last stand because you don't want to get caught without your engine. Expert marksman is excellent because it has a particularly bad turret turn. All the French destroyers have particularly bad turret turn. You definitely want the health because you're going to be spotted and shot at all the time. And then the optional ones I've chosen here are AFT, BFT and IFHE, which is one version of the build. You could also perhaps take superintendent and concealment instead, perhaps foregoing IFHE for a tier 3 and a tier 1 skill, maybe demolition expert and one of the other tier 1s. But this is the build I'm going with for the minute to give it maximum gunboatiness, and you'll see how effective that is in the upcoming replay. This is the lineup. It's top tier. There's a good mix of ships, 3 destroyers on each side, and there is a carrier, so we're going to have to work around that. Bear in mind that the French destroyers don't have any smoke and they have pretty much no AA. But tier 8 carrier shouldn't be too hard to deal with. I actually can't remember whether he harassed me too much or not. Keep your eye on that Jean Bart, and also bear in mind that whenever you see test ship replays, that the ships that are being played against don't necessarily know the characteristics of the test ships. So this Jean Bart, for example, we had a bit of a chat after our interaction, which you'll see in a bit, and they obviously didn't know that this has very good torpedoes and it has 2 sets on each side. I mean, to be honest, there's nothing that they could have done about it. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, but just bear that in mind whenever you watch test ship replays, that the person on the other side, on the receiving end, doesn't necessarily know what they're facing. So you can see me there asking in chat whether the Fiji can cap while I go and spot. What I want to do here is I want to zoom over to the east flank, over to maybe the 9 line, and see if I can get an early spot on some of the battleships, so that our battleships can get their first volleys in before the enemy does, and also sort of get a preview of what's coming. There is a carrier, and I am slightly mindful of the fact that there's a carrier, but it's only a tier 8, and there's some tastier destroyers in the centre of the map, and he's definitely going for those. So he's probably, now that he's found the Yugamo, he'll probably find the Kagero as well at some point, because they're quite close together. He's probably going to focus attention on those two, so I'm probably going to get left alone over here. So that's why I have the confidence to push over. If he did come this way, what I would have done was turn around and run south towards the Iowa and the Jean Bart, both of which have very good AA, and I'd simply shelter next to them until the carrier gets bored and goes away, and then I can zoom back. And that's one of the advantages of the speed on these ships, is that you can very quickly relocate if you find yourself being carrier focused. Just don't stray too far from an AA ship and you will be just fine. And also, obviously, your blistering speed with the speed boost will help you to dodge any carrier attacks as well. I'm not saying it's, you can dodge everything, but it's certainly easier in the French destroyers than it is in, say, a slower destroyer. So here we go. We get an early spot on that Donskoy. There's a Jean Bart back there. There's another ship back there as well. So I'm just having a look. Making sure that they understand that the sea's been capped, to make sure the Fiji is going in there. I've also popped some torps just across the mouth of the cap there, just to check the destroyer's not sitting on the lip doing the same sort of thing that I'm doing and spotting. And I'm just going to keep heading over. You definitely want to, early in a match like this, where you've got someone to cap for you, you can definitely go across and do some flanking. And I played this, to be honest, the same sort of way that I would play something like a Tashkent, where you want to try and get off to one side so that you force the enemy to turn their guns to shoot you. So that if they choose to shoot you, they're not shooting the rest of the team. And it takes them time then, when you go unspotted, it takes them time to turn their guns back to the rest of your team. And by doing that, if you're good at dodging, which actually in the French destroyers is pretty easy, because you have the speed to do it if you keep wiggling. And it actually plays a little bit into the aiming mechanic as well, because I don't know whether you realise, but the game actually helps you aim, and the shots will land where the ship was going when you fired. And the French destroyers are so fast with the speed boost on that it actually kind of mucks up that system a little bit. And even if someone predicts your movement and they try to anticipate your aim, they can actually still miss, because the auto-aiming system actually punishes them basically for the speed of the ship they're aiming at, and there's nothing they can do about it. And it's a slight problem with these ships, and you see it slightly on the fast other destroyers like the Kaba, for example. But it's just on the fringe of being noticeable, but you can definitely dodge quite easily. Now, you notice I've got pretty good range torps on this, 8. My spotting range is quite large, but it's about the same as my torp range. But the speed means I can actually torp oncoming ships pretty easily, and I can still get back out of the way if I get into trouble and start getting focused. And so the playstyle on these ships tends to be sort of pop up, harass a little bit, drop some torps, then melt away again, and then when people have sort of forgotten about you, you pop back up again and you do a bit more harassment. But don't forget, these don't have a heal, so you definitely want to pick your fights very carefully. You don't want to be, this isn't a Kaba, you don't want to be constantly firing and constantly being shot at. You definitely want to limit the amount of damage that you're taking. You have a decent health pool, but you need to treat it as a resource. Now, here's that Jean Bart I was talking about, and one of the things that these destroyers excel at tier 8, 9 and 10, particularly 9 and 10, is you have a set of 3 and a set of 2 torps on each side. The damage isn't fantastic, but they're reasonably fast, and of course you are reasonably fast, which makes sneaking up, or not sneaking so much, but just downright charging camping battleships really, really easy. Especially if there's an island you can dip behind like this. So I'm using my reload booster here to get some fires on him. I've also launched torps towards the bow of the Jean Bart. He's not going to be able to dodge those. Or maybe a she, actually. It's Mary. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a female player. Apologies if you are. So I've used the torps on one side, don't forget. And now I'm turning around, and I can turn around pretty quickly because good rudder shift and good speed. And my torp range is still well within where that Jean Bart is if I go back. I've still got plenty of health. They probably popped their own reload booster. But unfortunately the carrier turns up at that point and decides to have a go, so only with torps. But I thought it best not to go around the corner while I'm spotted, so I've turned. Easy to duke torpedoes when you've got this kind of speed and maneuverability, not a problem. I seriously considered going in and gunboating the Yugamo there, but without your main battery reload booster available, actually your DPM is not that good. And a Yugamo, if he's got his torps ready as well, a Yugamo could probably actually do me quite a lot of damage. So I was seriously considering pushing through, and then you can see me go, no, I'm going to go back and get the Jean Bart. So I turn hard right here, go back through the gap. I'm just pausing just a little bit just to see if the Yugamo is going to pop up in that gap. But I don't think they do, so I push forward. I'm just checking what the Jean Bart's up to. Are they going to continue camping? I think they think I've gone away, because the last time they saw me I was heading back towards B, being harassed by the carrier. So I don't think that Jean Bart is expecting me to come back, but I am going to come back. Our Jean Bart and Iowa here are pretty outnumbered. It's 6 versus 2 if you exclude me. 6 versus 3 with me here, so I'm just going to see if I can do some decent damage to this Jean Bart. Now I can see that they're just sort of feathering their throttle and station keeping, so it should be pretty easy to hit them here. And unfortunately the Shukaku turns up at exactly the wrong moment with rockets. Nothing I can do about it now, I've committed. So here we go. They miss with the rockets because they underestimated my speed, which is quite normal, but don't expect that to continue. Once these ships are released, people will get used to how fast these ships are. But people do generally underestimate how much lead they need to give with the carriers. Now I get both sets off here, so I do a quick 180. So I get a flooding. I've also popped my reload booster to try and get a fire. The turret turn is not great, so even with expert marksman you can see my front guns are still coming around there, but I was just desperately trying to get a fire before the next set of torps hit in case I don't get a flooding. But it doesn't matter because I killed them anyway. Yeah, the torps aren't great, but if you manage to land quite a few, particularly if they pop a, there we go, okay, torps on both sides, says the Jean Bart, and we had a nice little chat afterwards about the ship. Wasn't expecting them, but there's nothing they could have done about it because they were stationary anyway. Yeah, if you see one of these floating around in front of you, if you're a battleship, just be very aware if you see them doing a 180. There are definitely lots of torpedoes coming towards you. So you can see now here I've been totally focused on this cap and trying to help out these outnumbered battleships on our side. But it's just dawning on me now that actually we are several ships down and we're losing the B cap. We only have the A cap left, and that looks pretty safe. There's 2 ships to 1 over there. But we are definitely up against it here, and now I'm already on 102,000 damage here. But it looks like it's just going to be a high damage loss, and I won't spoil it for you. But I'm going to try and do my best to try and take out some more of these ships. Now that's what I was looking for, the Yugamo. I wanted to know where that Yugamo was. Now it wasn't necessarily the Yugamo that was capping, but I now know that it is. So my main battery reload booster has got 30 seconds left, so I'm just going to slowly make my way around, see if I can get this cap and get ready to go and push the Yugamo. There is absolutely no way that an IGN destroyer can outrun a Mogador or a Kleber or any of the other French destroyers, really. So I can definitely push him, and what you want to do when you push destroyers is obviously make sure that they're not going to torp you, but also just bear in mind that your gun angles aren't that great, so you're definitely going to need to plan a turn. You're going to need to turn broadside. And there's also something else which is very important to understand about the French destroyers, and that is the damage model on the body of the destroyer is different to every other ship in the game. These have midsections which have the same kind of hit point mechanics as the bow and the stern of most other ships. So the midsection of these ships can actually reach 0 without the ship being destroyed. And you can see me popping my reload booster there just to get that kill on that Yugamo. Easy peasy. These things are definitely the bane of other destroyers one-on-one when you have your reload booster available. Don't, if you're in another destroyer when these get released and you see one of these coming towards you, just get out of there. Do anything you can to make sure they don't charge you. Yeah, anyway, so the midsection of these ships can get saturated, And so actually in these ships, you want to be broadside. You want shells to land on your midsection because you want to spread those hits around. You don't want to take everything on your bow or your stern, because you can use your midsection as a damage sink, unlike other ships. Now, we've got B back, that was rescued from the Yugamo, and we've made a little bit of a comeback on the numbers. It's now 4 versus 5. The Azuma and the Richelieu over there on A, I think with a bit of help from Lexington, have actually managed to secure A. And so I'm just gonna harass this Massachusetts a little bit here while the carrier attacks him as well, and wait for my teammates to turn up. So ideally we just need to defend B now, but obviously these guys have to push, and they're going to push. But I've got quite a nice little camping spot here. I've stolen some smoke, which is a fantastic thing to do if you're in a French destroyer and you kill an enemy destroyer and you can cuckoo their smoke and use it against them. That's a pretty nice thing to be able to do. So I've got some good torp angles from both sides, and as you're running away, if you're running away from a group of ships, don't forget that you have very, very good rear and forward torp angles on both sides. So you can shoot torps to the left and to the right without actually turning very much. So if you're running away, you can throw torps all over the place, and of course you can weave quite nicely as well if you just need to throw torps behind you, and you've still got the speed while you're weaving to still be running away while you're doing that. So so I'm going to be sort of carrying on the same kind of playstyle that I was doing before. I want to go round here and try and spot the Neptune in case he tries to come up and over for this Richelieu, because I don't want the Richelieu to get surprised. And I don't want us to get, back capped. So Neptune is very dangerous to me, but at this point we need to risk something in order to win. Otherwise these guys are just going to push. So I'm going to go up here and... Oh, there we go. So the Neptune's been spotted by the Azuma. Don't forget there's also an enemy carrier around here somewhere. I'm not quite sure where he is. Both carriers seem to be fairly decent, so I'm imagining that at this point, I'm guessing that he's probably not going to be right up on the border. I can see his planes coming from somewhere near the corner, but maybe not right in the corner. So I'm going up here so I can get away from the risk of this Neptune, because he can kill me very, very quickly. So excuse the stuttering there, that's just the replay being a bit buggy. So I'm going to try and get some shells on this Neptune and try and distract his attention while the guys in the cap hopefully get some shells on him. So I've got no choice really but to go up round the top of this island and try and get around the back of him. Of course, dipping behind islands with this kind of speed is not a problem. It doesn't take very long. You can see I'm getting pens on him quite nicely there. With IFHE, the penetration on these HE shells is obviously pretty good. The build that I now recommend actually focuses more on fires, but against light cruisers, this build is excellent. The AP is also not bad on these, but with IFHE, the HE is also excellent. Now there's the Shukaku. So I'm currently smacking my lips because I can charge him down in a matter of seconds. So I'm going to keep firing on that Neptune. He's just popped his smoke screen. But unfortunately we've lost our Richelieu. As I suspected, he got pushed by the Massachusetts and the Freddy. So not a lot I could have done about that. So we're another ship down. I'm going to try and get rid of this carrier so that he stops harassing the Azuma. And meanwhile, hopefully Alexei can use the fact that the enemy ships are kind of bogged down with those islands to actually get some decent torp hits off. So this is where you'll see the... and I've switched to sort of third-person camera, if you like, so that you can see what's going on. But you can see here I'm charging down the carrier. I'm not going to pop my torps off until I get very, very close, just to make sure that I get them on. Particularly as I'm notoriously bad at charging carriers. But you can see I'm getting some effective fire over there onto the Neptune. And although it looks like I'm trying to torp the Neptune there, I'm actually focusing on the Shukaku. That's actually just the replay showing the wrong aiming reticule. I'm going to turn here and get the other side. Carrier doing his absolute darndest to try and stop me from doing that. But as you can see, I closed down the distance, no problem at all there. If you need to charge other ships in these French destroyers with your speed boost on, it's not a problem now. And it's the Neptune that's doing most of the damage to me here. I do get the Shukaku, but of course the Neptune with his AP finishes me off, and I end up on 195,000 damage and 4 kills. 187 shell hits. and 12 torpedoes. About half of those on the Jean Bart and half of them on the Shukaku. Now, the Lexington here could potentially do the job, but I won't make you watch the whole thing in normal speed, so I'll just speed it up here and let you see what happens. It's fairly predictable. He could possibly have done something, but the Neptune wouldn't have been a problem, I don't think, but the Massachusetts would probably, with its large health pool and AA, probably he would have got to him before he'd been able to destroy him. So I think this was never going to be a win, but good effort from both teams on this match. There was no one really that stood out as being a bad player. Everyone seemed to play very well. So congratulations to both teams, and commiserations to that Lexington. But yeah, this just gives you a taste of the kind of playstyle that you can expect from these French destroyers. Don't forget, this was a test version of the Mogador I was playing, but basically the playstyle is still the same with the current version, the release version, and you can get Mogador through the Armory as a result of finishing the bundles and using up your tokens in 086. For details on how that works, please do go and find my 086 Foghorn, which explains basically how it works, or you can read the article that is the dedicated French event article that is currently on the news portal for your region. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you very soon.